Hello, how's everybody doing today? Doing good? That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you all coming out today. And before I get into my first formal thank yous, I'd like to thank Mr. Kimbler and Mr. Masters, who had the brave courage of giving me the microphone here today. But other than that, I'd like to thank all the mentors, the parents, the administration, and most importantly, our three amazing teachers, Mr. Torter, Mr. Masters, and Mr. Kimbler, for making this event possible. So I'd like to start off today by giving a huge round of applause to everybody who was able to make it. Next, I'd like to thank the 32 individual students in our Compass class who powered through 300 hours with Mr. Kimbler and Mr. Masters. And arguably one of the hardest classes at Wayzata High School. So I think they deserve a round of applause as well. To introduce myself, my name is Avi, and I had the privilege of going through this program this year. And honestly, it's been probably one of my favorite classes at Wayzata High School. Over the past few months, my classmates and I have had the privilege of visiting over 15 businesses, ranging from corporate offices to factories to even a landfill. And we quickly realized who had the weakest stomachs there. We are also in the classroom, we were able to host over 20 guest speakers, ranging from investment bankers to engineers to even a guy who had a $1 million comic book collection. Talk about a replacement to a 401k, right? But other than that, Compass has opened up a lot of opportunities for us that us students wouldn't be able to get access to. For example, we visited businesses that we never even knew existed, and we were able to learn about career paths that we didn't even know existed as well. So Compass has opened up a ton of opportunities for us, and I speak for the class, we are eternally grateful for having this opportunity. Also in Compass, we also learned a few unexpected lessons, like how easy it is to fall asleep during Compass. Much to Mr. Masters' dismay, a few of us, myself included, could be found dozing off in the corner once in a while. But hey, in our defense, it's just simple economics. Low supply of sleep during night causes high demand during the day, right? But with that being said, today, 8 of our charter groups will be presenting a synopsis of their journey of working with their clients for the past few weeks. So we are super excited to have you all here. We've been preparing for this event for the past few weeks, and we're pumped to be able to do this today. So we're excited. With that being said, just sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's get started. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you all for being here. This is our Wayzata Compass showcase for our charter, Rocked Outdoor. I'm Daniel Salatino, and I'll be going to Managemet College next year for finance.
I'm Ashita Patel. I'll be attending Indiana University for economic consulting.
I'm John Hartman. I'll be attending Millbury College for economics.
I'm Bharath Nair. I'll be attending the University of Minnesota for electrical and computer engineering.
First, I want to go over the deliverables we were tasked with. Our first one was to develop an audit of competition to analyze strategies on how to best compete with companies. Our second one was to explore viable expansion opportunities for Rocked Outdoor and identify the logistical opportunities and challenges that may come. And finally, our third deliverable was takeaways for plans for future action. So what is Rocked Outdoor? Rocked Outdoor first started as a Wayzata High School project. It initially started with our charter sponsor, Ms. Seifert's son, who created the idea inside of an entrepreneurship class. Ms. Seifert then took that idea and decided to create the company Rocked Outdoor. Initially, it started as a hammock company, but then transitioned over to the dog/pet area. In order to get her foot in the door with all of the large pet companies that are around in the area, she decided to specialize in premium dog accessories, meaning she had higher end quality items and specializes in dog leashes, dog toys, dog beds, and a variety of other products. Another way she was able to start to gain brand awareness inside the industry was to go for a niche market appeal. This meant she chose to choose an outdoor lifestyle focus. So that meant she had partnerships with companies such as Hornady, which is a ammunition company, so she made specialized dog toys for them, as well as partnering with a company called Vortex, which specializes in binoculars, making a dog-type Kong toy out of a binocular, as well as creating a variety of other products to help target and peep those outdoorsy, camping, fishing type of people.
And so jump into our deliverables. Our first deliverable was to create an audit of major competitors. And so we did this by identifying 3 larger scale competitors, and these happen to be Multi-Pet, Tall Tales, and Spunky Pup. So essentially after identifying these, we researched further and found strengths, weaknesses, and then also key takeaways that Rocked can apply to their company. And then diving into our second deliverable, this was retail expansion opportunities. And so we did a lot of research both for online retailers and in-store retailers, and we identified 5 main ones: Amazon and Chewy, which are the 2 online, and then Treats Unleashed, Care-a-Lot, Pet Supply, and Buc-ee's. And so with that, we identified their strengths and weaknesses and how it can be very beneficial for Rock to expand within these companies to continue growing. And then for our third and final deliverable was plans for future actions. So first we identified cause marketing. We saw from our audit of competitors and also what our retail expansion opportunities what their companies that sell products in their stores do, and cause marketing was a huge one. This just creates great customer appeal. These customers like to see that these companies partner or donate to charities, and this just increases the social responsibility that a company has, and it also increases brand image, which also does increase brand loyalty. Second was product innovation, and so with ever-growing eco-conscious minds purchasing from these companies, they like to see when companies are recycling materials and being environmentally conscious when producing dog toys. And second was sustainable positioning. So with this, it's just having base products that you change seasonally to meet seasonal demands, like Christmas themed or Easter themed. And so we identified that sustainable positioning would also be beneficial. And then cause purchasing, which is just the consumer side of cause marketing. They like to see when companies are donating and being socially responsible. And then lastly was just the new retailers we identified that Rock should expand into.
All right, one of the major challenges that we faced was attaining data throughout our process. A lot of the companies that we researched were private, small companies, so it's very difficult to find information on them. Additionally, when we emailed the companies, we often didn't get a reply, which just made it difficult to find very specific information like inventory management. So when we were researching how many SKUs we were going to send or what warehouses we wanted to send our product to, it made it very difficult without contact with the actual company. Additionally, during our semester, the Trump administration made very many different changes in international policy. So the changes in tariffs really affected like what prices we were going to charge our retailers because Rock the Door produces their product in China. Additionally, one of our major successes was communication. So throughout the process, due to sports, our group couldn't meet very often, but we were very well able to communicate like when we weren't going to be able to meet and when we could work together. So then that, like adapting to those changes with the changes in sports teams was something that we were very good at in the process. And then also team management, just making sure that everyone had the correct amount of work and were put into a position where they could do the most event that really like went to the side of their strengths. And also collaboration, just making sure that like everyone's voices were heard and everyone's input was seen in the project. And I feel like that was very represented by our final product.
Now, how can we apply this to our class? Well, our project was solely based on market research of Rocked Outdoor. And in the economics unit of the Compass business management class, we had to write 2 different papers based on market research of our companies, of some companies that we picked. And we could have used these concepts that we learned from the market research in our project, we could have used them in our papers. Next, our team management. Now, in order for us to work as efficiently as possible, we needed us to work as a team together. And in the Compass business class, we had a lot of group projects that we could have done a lot better with the amount of teamwork that we could have had. And next, finally, communication. In order for us to work efficiently, we need to make sure that we communicated all of our conflicts in the Trello project management board. So in order to do that, each of us went into the Trello board and we entered all our conflicts in each single date that we had the conflict on. And what are some lessons and connections that we can take away? Well, we had to make sure that we delegated each of our work efficiently. So, because our project was based on market research alone, we had to delegate the 4 different types of market tasks that we had to do. So, one person found all the companies that we could expand to in the U.S. One person could found all the competitors in the U.S. And the next person found all the pros and cons of expanding to each retailer. And the final person did a full SWOT analysis on all of the companies that we had. Next, conflict management. As I said before, we had to use the Trello board, and we used that to manage all our conflicts effectively with Ms. Seifert. And finally, niche market research. Well, when we had to do our market research, we can't just look at one single source and find the research alone, right? We have to look at a bunch of different sources in order to make sure that all of the information is fully accurate. Now, connections to the real world. Well, in a real world, when a business starts up, they need to find out what their competitors and what their retailers that they want to expand to are. So in order to do that, they need to do a deep market research, and we found out that it's actually a lot harder than people think it is. Next, teamwork and communication. In order for a company to fully be efficient as possible, we have to make sure that they are being fully using teamwork and communicating efficiently. And finally, we found out that how to operate a small business. We found out how Miss Seifert built Rock from the ground up, and we found out how it can operate in the world, navigating its challenges with the tariffs.
Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. We're thrilled to present to you our top-line charter project. My name is Amol Grajagopal, and I'll be attending the University of California, San Diego, where I'll be majoring in economics and mathematics.
My name is Alina Megji, and next year I'll be going to Ohio State University to study finance and accounting.
My name is Nick Harn. I'll be attending the University of Iowa, and I'll be studying mechanical engineering.
My name is Ashwat Sunil. I'll be going to Indiana University to study finance. For this charter project, we decided to team up with Topline Financial Credit Union. They are a member-owned nonprofit credit union based here in Minnesota. They offer a wide variety of services, including banking and loan services, to help with their customers' finances. They also provide insurance and investment tools for their customers. Additionally, Topline focuses on community and education, specifically financial literacy in high schools. And lastly, they also support families and local businesses around Minnesota.
Our first deliverable was to audit personal finance in local high schools and basically learn as much as we could about their personal finance curriculum. We wanted to learn from these schools through focus groups and interviewing with both the teachers as well as the students. Through these focus groups, we wanted to identify the strengths of their curriculum and what was going well, as well as the weaknesses and what they should improve on. And lastly, we wanted to compile all of our research to develop a tool that would be beneficial for the students and the teachers.
As Nick mentioned, one of our deliverables was to audit personal finance classes in Minnesota. We did this by going to 3 local high schools. We went to St. Louis Park High School, Hopkins High School, and Wayzata High School. At these schools, we interviewed with a focus group of 8 to 14 students and the teacher from each of the schools. We asked them questions about the curriculum, about student engagement, and about gaps and challenges in the curriculum. We used this research to present to Topline about how they can make personal finance classes better. We also used this research to create our tool. For our tool, we created a 50-point multiple choice question quiz called the Topline Financial Readiness Quiz. The purpose of a personal finance course is to prepare students for the real world, and we hope that this quiz will help them. We also created a quick video.
Click the unmute.
Oh.
Slideshow.
Okay, here's our video.
Ready to test your money smarts? The Topline Financial Quiz is here to show you just how financially ready you are. Each question covers real-world money topics, from budgeting and credit to investing and saving. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong? No worries, we'll show you the right answer so you can learn as you go. At the end, get your financial readiness score, plus see how you did in key categories. Try it now and see how ready you really are.
Over this process, we faced many challenges. The first one was connecting with schools. We reached out to over 15 different schools, and unfortunately, only 3 of them responded. Even after follow-up emails, we didn't get any response. Communication with Topline was also another issue we had. The project lead for Topline, unfortunately, due to her conflicting schedule, was never able to meet with us, but she connected us with someone on our marketing team who was very valuable. Developing an online tool was also very hard, as none of us had any background in coding, but with the help of our classmates, we were able to overcome this. The depth of the student answers, we really wanted more depth from them, and from the focus group, we didn't feel like the student answers had enough depth to them.
We also had many successes within our group. Our first success was diverse research. We were able to get research from 3 different schools across the area, which have very different demographics and have a very diverse student body. We were also able to get great insights from teachers. They provided us with valuable information about their course, about their curriculum, and about their students. Additionally, we got a really good final result of our tool. It worked out just the way we wanted and had no errors or glitches within it. And then finally, as a team, we all worked really well together, and we were able to have good conflict management and work efficiently together.
For our applications to class, the first one was we built strong communication skills, both within our group as well as working with Topline and teachers and students. The second application was motivation beyond money, and finding ways to motivate each other to do the best work without getting paid. The third application was conflict management, and we found ways to resolve disagreements whenever we were having a dispute. And lastly, we strengthened our public speaking confidence, which was very important for the Compass class.
One thing that we have learned from our site visits and from our mentors is that regardless of what career you go into, working in a group is the norm. Throughout this project, we had to collaborate and hear others' ideas so that this project could be the best that we all wanted it to be. Additionally, we worked with a project management tool, which was something that was new to us, but it was very valuable in being an indirect form of communication and helping us stay on task. As I mentioned earlier, we did a lot of research for this project, and we learned that there's a lot of planning that goes into research, whether it's connecting with the schools, preparing our questions, or defining what a focus group looks like. Also, after we got our research, we had to organize it and find what was most valuable to us. Finally, when creating our tool, we ran into a few problems, but when we took a step back and looked at them from a new angle, we were able to find creative solutions.
Over this process, we had a lot of takeaways and lessons. One was constructive feedback is very valuable. The person from Topline that we were working with gave us little to no constructive feedback, and we realized how valuable we needed it. Time management was another takeaway and lesson we had, as we really learned how to make a schedule and follow it. How to adapt to changes was something we really learned, because when we first got our deliverables, they were changed and we had to learn how to adapt to those changes. Collaboration was something we really learned how to use effectively, as this team really collaborated well and worked really well together. Thank you so much for listening, and Wolves in 5.
Thank you all for coming out here. We're really excited to present to you what we've been doing over this past semester.
My name's Jenna Britz. I'll be going to Stevens Point next year and majoring in accounting and data analytics.
My name is Malini Patel. I'll be going to the University of Minnesota, and I'll be studying honors bio and health services management on a pre-med track and minoring in math. And then we had 2 teammates that couldn't be here today, but you'll hear from them on video. The first one is Kendra. She'll be going to the University of Iowa studying business, and the other one is Aaron Badoon, and he'll be going to Denver studying data analytics. So we worked with Reach for Resources this past semester, and Reach for Resources is a nonprofit organization that provides mental health services and disability services to people with disabilities in the Minnesota area. Some examples of services they provide are adaptive recreation, case management, housing services, employment support, and mental health services. The deliverables we were asked to accomplish were to research what exactly is a youth advisory board. We were asked to develop a framework to implement youth advisory boards into other schools. We were asked to create a youth advisory board at Wayzata High School for Reach for Resources. And we were asked to determine the scalability of a youth advisory board within area high schools, specifically in the metro area. And finally, to host a fundraiser event to both raise awareness and raise money for Reach for Resources. The work that we've completed is that we did some research as to what are some youth advisory boards that have been successful, what are some challenges that they faced, and what exactly does a youth advisory board do? We also created a youth advisory board and some helpful resources such as application forms, rubrics, and frameworks so that it's much easier to implement youth advisory boards in the future. We also determined that there is high scalability and created a list of many schools that we could implement a youth advisory board into. And then we created a template for implementation of the youth advisory board into other schools in the surrounding areas. And finally, we put on 3 fundraisers, 1 with Honey and Mackey's and 2 with yoga instructors.
Taking a deeper look into the finished products that our group was able to complete, I will be talking about the fundraisers that our group completed over this time period. Our first fundraiser took place on May 1st from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., hosted at Honey and Mackey's. During this fundraiser, we set up a trifold within Honey and Mackey's to share information about Reach for Resources and increase community awareness for the nonprofit. We also hosted a yoga fundraiser on May 3rd and May 4th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., where participants were encouraged to donate following a 1-hour yoga session where we shared information on what Reach for Resources is and the impact that they have on the community. Additionally, over the course of this project, our group was able to create a 12-month step-by-step plan for the youth advisory boards to follow to increase youth awareness about Reach for Resources, as well as run fundraisers of their own for Reach for Resources cause. We also determined the scalability of youth advisory boards in the area, in schools surrounding Reach for Resources, and after analyzing over 20 schools, we narrowed down the scalability of Reach for Resources youth advisory boards to 10 schools, including schools like Minnetonka and Chanhassen. Finally, we created a framework for implementing the youth advisory boards in other schools so that Reach for Resources had a way to seamlessly integrate the youth advisory boards into the other schools in a similar way to the way that we did it within Wayzata.
Going into some of the challenges we faced, the first challenge we faced was our communication with Reach for Resources. The main person that we were initially working with at Reach for Resources ended up taking a position somewhere else. So it was hard for us and we got stuck in the middle with no one to have to reach out to for questions and suggestions. But we ended up recovering from this by being located to a different person to work with, which helped us initially get towards our end goal. The next challenge was finding fundraiser hosts. A lot of the local businesses weren't aware of Reach for Resources and weren't willing to give us their time with a short period of time. We ended up recovering from this by presenting ourselves professionally and going in person, because this really helped us step up the progress of our fundraisers and have them really take action and go into place. Our next challenge was getting enough applications for the Youth Advisory Board here at Wayzata High School. A lot of students weren't aware of what Reach for Resources was, so they didn't know how they would contribute to the board. We sent out our message through National Honor Society and Volunteer Club with a short snippet of what Reach for Resources' mission and research behind what it is, and I think that really helped applicants have a desire and demand to be in the club. And then we also had a hard time managing all of our diverse deliverables. We had a lot of things to take care of, and this helped us lose sight of our end goals, but we were able to manage this through a workspace called Trello, where we were able to assign due dates and deadlines for all of the tasks that we had to complete as a team. Although we initially faced some challenges, we did have a lot of success towards the end of our charter project. We had a really great fundraising turnout with both the attendees and the money raised for Reach for Resources. We had very good team cohesion with our different abilities. We all have very different personalities and areas of expertise, but we were able to use this to collaborate really well to get things done and on time. We also had very qualified youth advisory board members. Since we sent this out through National Honor Society and Volunteer Club, the members were really willing and determined to help out with the youth advisory board and what its mission is. And then we did have a lot of free range and creativity during this project, so we were able to have really fun ideas for our fundraisers. And then we also had a very promising scalability. We have a lot of recommendation for the future youth advisory boards within other schools all around the metro.
So a lot of our charter project transferred over to some of the things we did during class. So to start, we took a color energy inventory at the beginning of the compass class, which matched our personalities with the color energy. And so our charter groups were based on our color energies, and they matched diverse color energies to a group to allow for team cohesion. And it also allowed people to maximize their strengths within their charter group. We also specifically had an assignment where we learned how to manage conflict, and that came into practice when we ran into bumps along the road during our charter project. We also had an assignment called Motivation Beyond Money, where we learned what motivates people and makes them tick. So we didn't have money, obviously, for this charter project, and we weren't getting paid for the work we were doing. So we had to learn how to motivate each other and stay motivated throughout the project when we didn't have money. And we also practiced a lot of communication in this class, whether that was learning how to write a formal email or communicating with our teachers or learning how to introduce ourselves to business professionals. So we got to practice a lot of that communication in our charter project, where we were communicating via email with the people at Reach for Resources. We were also communicating within our charter group, as well as communicating with our teachers and people within the community at our fundraising events. So moving on to some lessons learned and our takeaways. We learned that soft skills like communication, organization, and proactivity go a long way, and they really gave us the foundation for success in this project. We also, like mentioned before, learned that in-person appeals are more effective than emails. When we went in person to these businesses and pitched our fundraising ideas, we were a lot more successful going in person because we were able to build a face-to-face relationship and build better first impressions. And overall, that really helped us out. We also learned that having a clear plan is key for success. So having a direction and having a goal is a huge part of just making sure the project is moving along and floating smoothly. We did run into issues at the beginning, not necessarily knowing where we were headed. And so that really set us back as far as time and energy went. So we learned that always having a goal is key for efficiency. And then finally, some connections to real life. After speaking with some of our mentors, teachers, and the business professionals we met in the community, we learned that group work will always be a part of likely our future jobs and our everyday lives. So learning how to do that well and interact with others respectfully will be a huge part of success in the future. We also learned that hard work and a good attitude often outweighs your talent or your hard skills. And also, you can learn pretty much any skill if you have a good work ethic and a good attitude. We also learn how important professionalism is, and that presenting yourself in a professional way can go a long way when building good, strong first impressions and building strong relationships.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We are Joy Collaborative, and we're super excited to be presenting to you guys today.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon Lawrence. I'm attending the University of St. Thomas next fall, and I'm majoring in finance and international business. And unable to be with us, Ishan Park, he'll be attending virtually, and he's going to UW-Madison and majoring in finance.
Paige Von Holt will also be joining us virtually today due to an AP test, and she'll be going to Old Miss in Mississippi to be studying accounting. And my name is Avi, and I'll be going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to be studying computer science. So our project was about a nonprofit called Joy Collaborative. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what Joy Collaborative is a nonprofit that helps kids with life-limiting conditions, such as autism and other syndromes to essentially kind of be the best versions of themselves possible. Joy Collaborative builds quiet rooms for these kids, and it really helps them like thrive in their activities in this isolated environment.
Next is our deliverables. We were tasked to create a fundraising goal for this event. By using past events and suggestions from our supervisors, we came up with a goal of $20,000. In order to fulfill this goal, we had to come up with a marketing strategy consisting of using LinkedIn and Instagram to attract an audience of 75 to 100 people. Also, to fulfill our goal, we had to make a silent auction experience package called Taste of Wayzata, which people will bid on during the event. In addition to the silent auction, we also gathered sponsors to help reach our goal. And finally, to express our gratitude and send thanks to those who have helped us succeed, we are going to send out thank you notes to people who attended, donated, or even sponsored this event. Next is our deliverables.
To look at what Pairings is an event, a garden party thrown by Joy Collaborative, a fundraiser, where people can come that you pay to go, and a chocolatier is coming in with specialty chocolates. There's going to be a private chef coming in who can knife juggle, which is kind of cool. And winery is going to come, which supplying wine and beverages for their guests. And this is just kind of a great way for people to come together that have a common goal of supporting Joy Collaborative and have a nice night May 29th, which we'll be attending and we're super excited for.
Social media. We were tasked with coming up with a marketing strategy. To do this, we decided to leverage social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We chose these 3 platforms because this is where our target audiences would be viewing our posts and get excited for what's to come. As for the posts themselves, we decided to keep them fun and joyful, just like Joy Collaborative, by using purple to bring in the pairings concept, and then yellow to bring back that joy. As for the sponsorships, we wanted to make sure that each sponsor got a shout out on our posts. This was because we think that they deserve all the recognition for their huge contributions. Social media. The silent auction, a key element of the pairings event, where bidders can bid on baskets and all the proceeds go to Joy Collaborative's mission. Our task was to come up with one basket, which we decided to call a Taste of Wayzata, obviously because we're all students at Wayzata and we know the town really well. We started by emailing companies to see if they would like to donate, but this didn't get very much attention. So what we did instead was go to downtown Wayzata and have face-to-face conversations with these companies. We found this to be way more effective. 1, because the companies could trust us, and 2, then they could learn more about Joy Collaborative's mission and they would be more likely to donate, which we found way more effective.
Looking at sponsorships, we included a QR code here if you have any interest in going to the event, if you know any business that would be interested in sponsoring the event, as we're still looking for sponsors for May 29th. And we've had a huge success with some of the sponsors that we've been able to have, is we've gotten BMW Minnetonka, Poquet, Lexus, Dakota County Lumber, which we've been able to leverage a lot of our resources to be able to get these sponsorships, and have found that connections above all really helps when you're looking for companies to be interested in you.
Some of the challenges that we had working on this project was first timely communication. Because this event is in May, we didn't really clarify with our charter project that most of the work will actually be happening in May. And due to finals, AP tests, and just graduation around the corner, it put more work on our end. And so we ended up overcoming this, and we worked with them to figure out a resolution. Another thing that we had a challenge with was managing inputs. Initially, we were working with 3 different supervisors, but managing the inputs from all 3 different people just ended up being chaos. So we clarified that with them, and we started working with 1 supervisor. And then for our evolving deliverables, when we were first tasked with Joy Collaborative, we were just told vaguely to put on a silent auction package and put on this event. but it wasn't very clear what we had to really put on. So we were able to figure out with Joy Collaborative, our silent auction package, which is a taste of Wayzata, and we were able to overcome that.
Moving along to a few successes of the project is, like I mentioned earlier, in-person communication is key. When we went door knocking downtown Wayzata, we were able to get in contact with most of the businesses that we needed a silent auction from. But before, when we sent up to many emails and phone calls, we heard basically no response. So I'd say in-person communication was a huge success that we had. And then transparency, when we were communicating with our advisors or looking at something with our charter projects, we needed to be transparent with what was going on and what the opinions of our group members or what the advisors needed from us. And then utilizing connections, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the sponsors and silent auction items we were given were because of connections that we had.
Through our journey, we found that teamwork, collaboration, and communication really helped us organize and set up this event by using these skills to talk within our team and with our company. Planning, preparation, and adaptability were key throughout this process since we had a lot of moving parts and changing variables. We also learned that in-person interactions always is better than cold emailing companies. We found so much more success when we were going in person rather than when we were just emailing a bunch of companies at once. Asking questions early to avoid future mistakes and miscommunications is really another important thing that we learned throughout this process. And a connection to our real life is that using resources and leveraging our connections is really important, because without these, we wouldn't have been able to find many of our sponsors and even some of our donation packages.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for coming. We had the Wayzata Education Fund for our charter project. My name is Sasha Eubanks, and I will be attending the University of Missouri next year to study journalism, marketing, and sociology.
My name is Nora Moon. I was the project coordinator, and I'm going to Luther College majoring in accounting.
My name is Ariella Kravchenko. I was the project communicator, and I'm going to the University of Kansas to study journalism and mass communications.
My name is Jack J. Rahman. I was the project facilitator, and I'll be attending Arizona State University to study business entrepreneurship. So first, starting off with what is the Wayzata Education Fund? Who's the company that we worked with? The Wayzata Education Fund is a nonprofit organization that provides grants to different classes and projects throughout the school district. Some examples include, in the top right corner, you can see Birchview Elementary School's principal, Mr. Farrington, receiving a check for over $13,000 for the school's garden. And in the bottom right corner, you can see Mr. Torter and Ms. Johnson, two of Compass's most critical pieces, receiving a certificate and a $25 gift card showing different students' appreciations for them. Looking more longer term and higher level, the company wants to fundraise $150,000 for this fiscal year, and they want to do that by engaging 100% of families in the district.
Our project deliverable was to create an outdoor experience for the third graders at Plymouth Creek Elementary while integrating the themes of nature and nature learning.
So for our work, we hosted an event at Plymouth Creek Elementary School for the third graders outside in the field near the school. Here we had a bunch of different stations. We had 4. One was the relay race station, which is in the top left corner. Below that is the coloring station, and right in the center is the planting station. In addition to these, we also had a bingo scavenger hunt station that the kids got to have fun with.
And then the 2 pictures on the right, you can see the merchandise that our team designed, created, and handed out to the students. In the top right, you can see 5 kids from a 3rd grade class holding t-shirts that we actually got sponsored through a local landscaping company called Aspen Landscaping. They were able to donate over $400 to this cause, which amounted to over 20 t-shirts for the kids. In the bottom, you can see 2 of the 3rd graders holding water bottles that we handed out to every single kid at the event. And the reason we went with these 2 forms of merchandise is to not only have the one-time event, but to have the effect and get the name out of the WYZETA Education Fund in the community over time.
So in addition to hosting it, we also created a promotional video that the WEF got to share across their social media platforms. So
throughout our project, we encountered several challenges. One of the main challenges was busy schedules. Spring break, DECA trips, and any other personal events in our lives made it hard to find time to meet together and get work done. Another challenge was our communication with Plymouth Creek Elementary School. It was very hard in the beginning to get in contact with them as they were prioritizing other events in their school, which kind of set us back with having other ideas that we could have done for the event. But in the end, we did get to meet with Plymouth Creek Elementary School and had a very advantageous meeting about logistics and any questions we had for the event. Also, another challenge was collaboration and internal communication. Since in our project we had our own assigned roles, that meant we had our own tasks, which kind of led to we had less collaboration as we focused on our own tasks and also led to poor internal communication.
Next, with our successes. The first success that we identified was the event execution. The event went very well and all the stations and the station setups went very smoothly. So all the kids had a lot of fun, and not only kids, but the teachers and our Compass students, everyone had so much fun at the event. Next was the communication with our charter. Our charter was really great at talking to us and being very open and honest with our communication, back on time, and everything having to do with communication with our charter was very, very smooth. Next was the team dynamic. We were all very open and honest and able to communicate with each other, and all of our team dynamics worked really well together, and we were all able to harness our different and individual skills. And moving on with that was the agility and flexibility with each of us. We were all very flexible. As Nora said, we all had our different events and conflicts with meeting, but we were all very flexible and able to meet at least once a week. Next was the positive feedback from the stakeholders. The kids had a lot of fun, the teachers had a lot of fun, and overall the event went very, very well.
So this also applied to our Compass class and the things we're learning inside the classroom. One of the things that we got the opportunity to do this semester was go out to different businesses and observe how they function and how they differ from each other when it comes to management. Through this project, we got to learn how nonprofits work. Excuse me. We also got to understand how global issues affect businesses. Since this is an economics class, we got to learn a little bit about that inside the classroom, but we also got to experience it firsthand when it came to ordering merch and getting that stuff in on time.
Now for lessons learned and takeaways, we learned how important it is to pay attention for every detail in event planning, especially when event planning for kids. There's a lot that goes into it, which a lot of us, we didn't really realize how much goes into it for details, like safety, allergies, and all the supplies we needed were just one of the lessons we learned by doing this event. Another lesson learned and takeaway is timeliness, whether it's like scheduling the event itself or just performing the event as well. We learned that kids, they thrive on structure and routine, so staying organized and punctual is very important with planning our event. And another takeaway was communication. Within our group, communication was very important to stay on task and also just keep people in the loop, as well as working with the WYZETA Education Fund. It was important to send out weekly emails just to keep them up to date of what we were doing in our project.
This project also allowed us to learn some real-world skills. The biggest one that we learned was cold calling and sales. We had to cold call over 20 different local businesses and pitch them and sell them on why they should sponsor our event. And what we learned is that cold calling is scary. It's pretty nerve-wracking. About to pick up the phone, there was definitely some times where we hesitated to even ring, but once we did, we got pretty comfortable and we decided on a pitch that worked. We hit on the fact that we were high schoolers and that we were supporting a nonprofit and third graders. And we found that that was the big way to close the sponsorship. We also learned how to balance communication with multiple companies, because from our time in Compass, we visited multiple different companies. And what we've learned is that most successful companies have communication and long-standing partnerships with other companies. And so being able to communicate what the other company wants in a timely fashion and giving them enough information was huge. And we learned that through communicating between our group with the Wayzata Education Fund, Aspen Landscaping, our sponsor, Plymouth Creek, and all other parties involved.
Thank you so much for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. We had the pleasure of working with Kelly Enterprise this past semester, specifically their business manager, Peter Miller, on our charter project. My name is Addison Walker. I'm going to be attending the University of Minnesota Twin Cities to study economics on a pre-law track.
My name is Jack Berge. I will be going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to study mechanical engineering.
My name is Jack Denson. I will be going to Montana State, and I'll be majoring in business management.
My name is Jacob Hodovec, and I'll be going to the University of Iowa to study finance and accounting.
A little bit about Kelly Enterprise and the business that we worked with this past semester. They are a premier window and door distributor who pride themselves on having a reputation built on training, quality, and integrity. One of the other things they pride themselves on is being the major distributor for Marvin Windows and Doors, which is a very quality producer in the industry. Some of the deliverables that we had to work with for this project were making a research report based on the key framing questions that Kelly Enterprise gave us, some being coming up with different qualifications for a showroom based on the property size, and different ways to gain empathy for stakeholders within this expansion. The next deliverable is present 3 showroom locations in a specific location to Kelly Enterprise that they could possibly expand to that qualify for their Marvin Windows and Doors showroom. The third deliverable was to create a budget for this project, incorporating a bunch of different aspects such as technology, the physical showroom, and what they will be putting in it. The fourth deliverable was to create a final presentation recommending our next step and actually moving forward with one of our locations that we suggested to them.
Now I'm going to talk about some examples of our work. First, since Kelly Enterprises wants to move to a coastal city, we had to do a flood risk analysis. This means we had to research flood zoning and use that information to make predictions to give the executives at Kelly Enterprise an idea of the risk of floods for each of the 3 locations. Next, we had to create a budget. Our goal here was to create a cash position based on the 3 locations and how the different price per square footage, and needed renovations would add up to create a budget for each of them. And then proximity. We first looked at locations near downtown areas with dense populations. We looked here to use the advertising of curb appeal to its full effect. Next, we looked at proximity to different major roads and highways, allowing for easy truck access for the transport of Marvin Windows and Doors. This proximity to these highways also allows for Kelly Enterprise to service the entire metro area. Some challenges that we came across in such a large project like this is conflicting schedules, hindering meeting coordination. As we are all in either sports, jobs, or other extracurriculars outside of school, it was hard to find meeting times where all of our schedules lined up. Additionally, unclear roles blurred task responsibility. This picture shows an image of our project management tool, Trello. And as you can see, we started using it at the very beginning, but as we grew away from it, using more informal forms of communication, like text messaging. If we were to go back and try this again, we probably would have used Trello more to streamline ideas and responsibilities. Additionally, low focus at the beginning of the presentation led to procrastination, but after we leaped this hurdle, we were able to find success in our project. Leading into success, our communication and adaptability was vital to our success. We were able, although we did not use Trello, we were able to use text messaging to stay in contact and continue working diligently on the project. Then another success of ours was our company executives received a professional presentation. We were able to take some of those big ideas and put them down in a presentation for Mr. Miller, as well as the owners, the Kellys. Finally, all the small bits of information that were not large enough to be put in a presentation, we put in a detailed research paper of 30 plus pages. Finally, we successfully managed deadlines using time management skills and balancing our schedules to be able to meet these deadlines.
And then getting into the journey of our project, we're going to be talking about how we applied our project to class, some of the lessons we learned from this project, big takeaways from the project, and then any connections to real life. Then getting into how this project can be connected to our classroom, we used our micro and macroeconomic understanding from class and applied them to all the locations listed on a report, looking at things like economic growth, GDP growth, and market growth. And we applied these to all the locations to justify Kelly Enterprises expansion. And then we practiced some real-world budgeting and financial modeling, again, for all the locations listed on our report. And in these financial models, we took everything into consideration to best help Kelly Enterprise and to back any recommendations that we had for them. And then we turned classroom lessons like organization and leadership, more specifically units 10 and 14. We applied these directly into our team dynamic, and it really helped us with getting those final deliverables to Kelly Enterprise. And then some of the lessons that we learned in this project, we practiced very good communication with Kelly Enterprise, making sure that our deliverables met expectations. And we also practiced good communication inside our group. And in the long run, this really helped us out with getting those deliverables finished. And then we had to learn how to be flexible and have adaptability. We had to deal with the changing of meeting dates. We had to change some internal deadlines. And all the group had to deal with any other outside responsibilities that they had. But in the end, we were able to adapt and move forward. And then finally, this project did a very good job of preparing us for the real world. Again, we had to deliver those real deliverables, the paper and the presentation to Kelly Enterprise. And overall, this project did a very good job of equipping us with traits that we need to succeed in the future.
We had a few big takeaways during this charter. They were communication, adaptability, and time management. We learned that communication was very important for us, both within the charter and with the charter. Good communication within the charter allowed us to ask any questions that we had and work as a team to get them resolved, which allowed us to produce a high quality output. Having good communication with the charter and Kelly Enterprises really allowed us to make sure that Kelly Enterprises and us were on the same page so we could provide a good output that was in line with both our goals and theirs. Adaptability was really important for us because halfway through our presentation to Kelly Enterprises, our computer stopped working. So the slides were not showing up as they should, so we had to quickly pivot to our printed versions. And being able to be adaptable really allowed us to have continue a smooth presentation and get all the things they asked for out. We also had to deal with altering deliverables. So the first time we met with Kelly Enterprises and Mr. Miller, they switched up our deliverables and cut one off. And then the second time we met with them, we had presented them with 6 potential locations, and they decided that they wanted to be closer to the location that they were moving to. So we had to quickly alter our plans and find 2 other locations that were much closer to the city. We also had to deal with time management. Deadlines in this project were something that could not be changed, so making sure that we could all find time to do our work and meet was very important and allowed us to not cram to the last minute. And like Jack already said, we were all student athletes and have commitments outside of school, so being able to balance our practices and games with the needs from this charter in school proved to be very important for us. We also have a few connections to real life. One of them is workplace expectations. Through our visits, site visits, and talking with our mentors, we've learned that teams are something that are going to be very common through internships and through real jobs. So having the ability to practice working in the team and finding our strengths and weaknesses and pushing to embrace our strengths and have others fill in our weaknesses really allowed us to form a tight knit and produce a high quality output. We also learned about problem solving under pressure. When we met with Mr. Kelly the second time and he decided to have locations closer to the city, we didn't have a large surplus of time to find these extra locations. So having the ability to find new resources and ask for people to help us out was proved to be really important for us to find 2 more high quality locations. We also learned about the importance of building relationships. Throughout our time with Kelly Enterprises, we got to meet with Mr. Miller a lot, but also talk with 4 other owners of the company. This allowed us to really gain empathy for their cause and also learn more about what their goals were for this business and their reasons for this expansion. Having that extra information really allowed us to take the next step into kind of putting ourselves in their shoes and gaining more understanding of why they're doing that so we can really make sure our intentions and their goals are lined up.
We all believe that this experience, this real world experience was really cool, and to research, plan, and then hopefully Kelly Enterprise can execute this business expansion strategy would be really cool. We'd like to thank Compass, Mr. Miller, Mr. Masters, Mr. Kimbler, as well as our mentors, and Mr. Tom Hodovik for his commercial real estate expertise. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for coming. So for our charter project, my group and I worked with Team Packaging, and we're looking forward to telling more about that today. So for a quick introduction, I'm Chinga Mitchell. I was a communicator for the group, and in the fall, I'll be going to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities for finance.
I'm Toju Oluonanuga, and I was the facilitator for this project. And in the fall, I will be attending the University of Minnesota, studying political science on a pre-law track.
My name is Caleb Sondell. I was the project lead for this project, and next year in the fall, I'll be going to Indiana University to study finance.
My name is Hyde Lambert. I was the coordinator on this project, and in the fall, I will be going to University of Minnesota Duluth to study economics.
So starting off with an overview of our company, Team Packaging is a packaging company that seeks to create high-quality packages that are efficient and low cost. They do this for many different industries, such as automotive, industrial, and aerospace. At the start of the project, we had a few deliverables that we set out to achieve. First, we wanted to audit a couple of schools and see how their packaging students were doing in their post-college lives, seeing how much money they were making and seeing how many of them were getting jobs. And then we set out to have focus groups in a few colleges where students would tell us why they did packaging, how they found out about it. But we eventually switched from focus groups to a survey because that was a much more efficient way to reach out to more people and get better responses. And then we wanted to develop a few activities to encourage students to learn about packaging and see how it works and how it could be a potential career for them. And then we had a final presentation where we presented our recommendations for packaging and our deliverables.
So this first example we're going to look at is some data that we gathered through a questionnaire that was sent out to packaging students from different universities such as University of Wisconsin Stout, Michigan State, Virginia Tech, Rochester Institute of Technology, and Cal Poly. Now, the purpose of this research was to really understand why current packaging students chose packaging as their major. So when creating our lessons and activities, we could then gear those activities towards students that have similar interests. So for example, you can see here that creativity was a major draw for these packaging students. And so keeping this in mind for activities, we focused on including a creativity and hands-on emphasis when going to these classrooms. So for this next example, this is a poster we designed for the Career and Technical Education Showcase at Wayzata High School. Now, this was attended by members from both Team Packaging and UW-Stud that we were working with at the time. And the purpose was to have an eye-catching infographic that could deliver to students key information about packaging, because our research found that one of the major issues of packaging is that people either just don't know about it or they have a lot of misconceptions. So the focus was to really get rid of those misconceptions and so show people the opportunities that lay within packaging. Now, this third activity is one of the activities that we designed for Team Packaging with the mindset that they would go to different classes in high schools or colleges and present to them with this activity. So our goals of this were to engage students, raise awareness, and boost student involvement in packaging. Now, this activity here is a packaging competition where the idea was that students would have a 10-minute design period to design their own packages in groups, and then at the end they'd come together and there'd be an analysis or testing phase where they then would be awarded for having the most durable or the best design package. So again, as I mentioned earlier, with the creativity and hands-on learning, our goal is to really emphasize that because that is what draws so many students to not only packaging majors, but packaging careers as well.
Throughout our process, we did run into a few challenges throughout our time with this process. One of the first and biggest problems we ran into was some focus group non-responses. We reached out to many schools, and oftentimes we just wouldn't receive anything back, or we would receive one reply, and then we'd send a message again, and then radio silence and was nothing. So we had to move on over to sending out surveys to all these schools and within our own high school to get a better understanding of what was going on within packaging. Another problem we ran into was we found that within ourselves and some other people are just unfamiliar to packaging. It's not something that's super popular, and it's somewhat of a niche thing that many people haven't ran into. And our third thing was communication issues within our team. There were times where some of us would have a practice come up or some sort of activity they had to go do, and that kind of made it a little bit harder to coordinate between all of us at times.
Yeah, and so I just talked about the challenges that we had, but we also had a lot of successes in this project. One being the adaptability within our team. Like I had mentioned, we had a lot of those like school sports and extracurricular activities come up that stopped us from doing our work when we wanted to. But we were able to adapt and overcome that challenge by delegating tasks to different people that could be there and do the tasks on time. Another success that we had was designing the engaging activities. When we presented our activities to our charter, they loved it, and they said they were really looking forward to implementing them in their future plans of advertising for the major. So that was a huge success for us. And then our final success was the data that we collected and how we adapted to how we weren't able to get those focus groups going. So we made a quick shift to the survey, and I think that went really well.
For our journey, we encountered a few challenges and made growth during our project. For instance, efficient communication. At first, we weren't communicating in the most effective way. People weren't responding to each other. But as time went on, we eventually started responding quite quickly. And for time management, at the start, we sometimes would waste time when working on our project, but towards the end, we were much more efficient with our time. And conducting proper research, we learned quite quickly through the inability to do the focus groups that using a survey was a much more effective way to collect data. And we just learned how to value the opportunity we had to work with the company in this project on just trying to encourage people to see a new type of work that most people don't know about. And also just keep an open mindset. Sometimes we were a bit rigid and set focus on a certain fashion or way to do the project, but we realized that there's other ways and more efficient ways to do things like the research and the way we did our presentation. Thank you.
For our charter project, we worked with the company Ascentech, and we're excited to share our experience with you guys. So I'm Ava Nyer, and I'll be attending The Ohio State University next year.
My name's Madison Vickers, and I'm attending the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Unfortunately, Owen Raby is not here with us today, but he's going to the Indiana University. My name's Raghav Kabra. I'm going to Mankato State.
So a little overview of Ascentech. They're an 100-year-old Minnesota-based company, and their slogan, "Make Tomorrow a Little Bit Better Than Today," embodies their values of manufacturing and innovation. They also produce original equipment manufacturing fluid technologies and sell these to other manufacturers as well as related services. So for our deliverables for this project, we had to research customer behavior. This meant we had to find the pros and cons of conventional batteries versus AGM batteries within the powersport industry. We also had to research key findings. This meant we had to visit retailers and dealerships, as well as look at forums and online websites. We also had to find the gaps in our research and what we were missing. We also had customer feedback. So we had to talk to customers one-on-one and understand their pain points and their struggles with their batteries within power sports.
We also had to talk to sales reps and what their preference was on OEM batteries versus aftermarket batteries. Lastly, we had future action, so we had to recommend to Ascentech through our research on batteries what they should do for ATVs, UTVs, marines, snowmobiles, and motorcycles.
Now, here are some examples of our work. These are some of the slides from our presentation at Ascentech, and as much as I would love to give you a 50-minute presentation on batteries today, that's not what we're going to be doing. So if you can see in the upper left corner is a battery overview, and this is one of the deliverables as Ava has mentioned, so the difference between conventional and AGM, and this is one of the stepping stones of our presentation. We went over findings for the different vehicles. So we had motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATV, UTVs, boats, and motorcycles. And up here is an example of the findings page for our motorcycles. We showed the responses, which was our recommendations for the future for what Ascentech can do in the battery market. And challenges that we went through. As you can imagine, doing market research on batteries online and in person may be a little bit difficult. But especially, we had a challenge with unwelcoming retailers. Not many people wanted us coming in and interviewing their customers while they were trying to have sales and maybe go through and sell a $1,000 pontoon or, sorry, a $100,000 pontoon or a $10,000 jet ski. As well as this, the limited customer interviews had to do with the fact that when we were doing our research, it was during business hours. When people were working, between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. is when we were doing our research, and not many people were at Cabela's doing their research on batteries the way that we were. And our contradictory findings. So in the end, when we were telling Ascentech what our recommendations were for their batteries, we had different findings based off the vehicles. So for competitive motorcycles, we wanted to recommend lithium-ion batteries, but for the average motorcycle user, AGM batteries were the recommendation. So it's hard to give one pinpoint recommendation for the company.
I'll be talking about successes, and out of the many we had, I'll be talking about the main three, which was informational finding. With this, a lot of sales reps and technicians were very willing to share their information with us and give us very detailed information on different types of batteries and the different sectors that a company could attack from. And then another thing we were able to do was use very diverse research methods and use not just in-store retailers and dealerships, but also use forums like Quora, Reddit, and also very niche motorcycle, snowmobile, and ATV forums so that we can also get information from people who have been in this field for a long time and have a lot of experience working on them or even selling them. And also collaboration within our charter. We were very good at communicating what was needed to be done, and also using apps like Trello and Smartsheets to make sure we met deadlines and delegated tasks well. So with this, our applications of class, using the macroeconomic and microeconomic knowledges that we had from the class, we were able to better understand the market for the batteries and to help Ascentech know where to enter the market and from which angle to enter from. Management within groups was also able to be done very well using Trello and Smartsheets alike, because at the beginning of class we did do a presentations overviewing a lot of different project management tools, and we were able to use Trello, which is very helpful. And also networking, holding a conversation between sales reps and technicians, holding a conversation among us when we first started out because we all didn't know each other, and also being able to get the information we needed out of all the people we talked to.
Now we're going to be talking about our lessons and key takeaways from our project. First, we have multiple forms of research, such as in-person, online, and through forums. In person, we would talk to dealerships and stores where we would talk to sales reps, technicians, and customers, and we would kind of interview them to get both sides of the spectrum on their insights. We would also look at many different websites and forums like Quora, Reddit, and battery forums to see what the customers and the general public was thinking. Another takeaway was team project management, where we assigned roles such as the facilitator, the communicator, the project lead, and things like that, so we could manage the workflow and we could delegate tasks very easily, and we really found it beneficial to keep the project moving along. Now I'm going to talk about how this connects to our real lives. So with market analysis, maybe one day we might be in roles or positions where we're going to have to analyze market trends and look at buyer demographics, seller demographics, see what the preferences in industries are. So this was valuable to connect and see a good example of what we could be doing one day. Also, teamwork and communication. We learned how to work together as a team for one common goal, and with 4 different color energies, we learned how to specialize in our things and collaborate as a team. We also had to communicate with each other, our sponsors, and our teachers to make sure everything ran smoothly and find times where we could work together, or we could set up meetings on Zoom and Teams with our sponsors, or email our teachers and sponsors about problems and how to resolve that. We also learned how to research and formulate ideas better, because in our final deliverable, we formulate idea with actual market recommendation for our company to enter the market and how they should do so. And we found many different ways to research and methods to carry this out.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, that's it for presentations. I just want to take a minute to thank some people again. I know Avi did this in the beginning, but we want to do it one more time. As you can see, we had 8 great charters that we worked with this year. They provided some challenging and rewarding experiences for the students. Hopefully they'll take those skills with them into the next phase of life. We hope we help them out just as much as they helped us out in the process, and we hope that they'll come back again in the future. If any of you work for companies that would like some amazing 18-year-olds to work on projects for you next year, come talk to Mr. Torter or myself, and we'd love to get a charter working with your businesses as well. Mentors, there's a whole bunch of mentors here today. Thank you so much for your time, whether it was on phone calls and meetings, providing support, giving answers, giving data, watching presentations. Some of you spent way more time than others, but it's the process that the kids go through trying to figure out how this is going to help them in the future. And I guarantee you that the process that you went through with them is going to help them somewhere down the road. And hopefully they stay in touch with you and they reach out to you and let you know how much of a rewarding experience this was. Parents, hopefully over the course of this class, you had some fun communications with your students about the class and some good discussions. We're hoping that they went home and talked to you about some stuff, maybe dug in a little bit. Thank you for helping them stick with this. I know most seniors don't want to be doing something this challenging at the end of their senior year. They'd rather be senior sliding. We had a little bit of that, but overall, it's amazing. They hung in there, they stuck through this whole process. And so for those of you parents that said, hey, stay in there, hang in there, thank you so much for your help. It was well received. Alum, we got some alum here, some BME alum. Thanks for coming in. This year we had the most ever. We had 7 students come back and give presentations to class. The kids love hearing from people that are not much older than they are and the experiences. They all have a lot of questions about college and what it's going to look like and what they can do and what this process will be. And so we had, like I said, over 7 of them come in this year and talk with the class, and it was greatly appreciated. Keep coming back, keep providing some insight to our kids. It makes a difference. District, thank you to the district for supporting this class, the Compass program. We're one of a few schools in the state that have a program like this. It makes us different, and we really appreciate it, and we'd love to keep this growing and offer more opportunities to kids. So thank you to the district. Last part, all the students, come on in here. There's a whole bunch of them. They're gonna hit this room real quick. They'll understand this probably more than most of you, but this is my attempt to be green, just so you all know, just FYI. Thanks for hanging with us. 3 days a week, 18 weeks. Sorry, 3 hours a day, 18 weeks. We had some fun. We learned a whole bunch, laughed, shed some tears, had some deep discussions. What else? Disagreed at times. You were challenging. It was really good. It was awesome. We hope that this process is going to help and improve you down the road and you see the value in this. Thanks for putting up with us. Stay in touch and come back and help future classes. With that, we're done. Thank you.